Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inner Power Training, sponsored by LifeWave, the company that makes these amazing patches that we'll talk about later on in the video. I'm joined once again with Kevin Fitzgerald, and the topic today is going to be called The Return of Camelot. And, as you know, Robert F. Kennedy is announcing that he's running for president. Of course, if you're old enough to remember the John F. Kennedy time in American history, we called that Camelot. I was around to experience it, and it was kind of a magical time when he was president because we had Jackie, who inspired us to upscale ourselves, look better, feel better, be more discerning when it came to good taste, bad taste. So that was all very, very uplifting back then. So Kevin has traveled extensively as a person who owned a tour company, and he's been to some very, very interesting parts of the world where these ancient historical legends prevail. Like he's been to ancient Egypt. I think he's also been to Glastonbury and that part of England where Camelot and King Arthur supposedly lived way back when. And he knows a lot about it. So I'm going to let Kevin take over and give us some information about King Arthur, the Round Table, Lady Guinevere, and the Kennedy connection.
Great,
Welcome.
Rebecca.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting times that we live in, and, we live in a very polarized political environment right now with Trump and Biden representing extremes. And now you have Robert F. Kennedy kind of coming in as a middle ground unifier, right? So his uncle, like you mentioned in the intro, his presidency was known as Camelot. And when I had my awakening epiphany, what happened was I was given information over 3 days about King Arthur and Camelot. And one of the questions that I asked was, what does Camelot mean? And the answer was a divine way to rule. So it's rulership from the heart, right? So King Arthur was all about unifying England. That's what he did. That's what great rulers do. They unify. And what Robert Kennedy Jr. represents now is unifying America. And he's surging in the polls, he's speaking truth, and he's leading from the heart, which is really what Camelot is all about. It's an ascended way to move humanity from a political and leadership standpoint.
Absolutely. And, what they say we're living in right now is the time we're going through that spiritual awakening, transitioning into the fourth dimension from the 3-dimension. And it's all about activating the heart chakra. And that's, like you say, what Camelot was all about with the Round Table and the way they conducted themselves. They weren't they knights that went out to help people that were helpless? And
well, yeah, but there's so much more to it. So the Round Table signifies oneness. So there was 12 knights of the Round Table. King Arthur was 13. That's very metaphorically symbolic, right? Because there's 12 signs of the zodiac. The sun is number 13. So number 13 is the number for claiming your divinity. So as we ascend our consciousness, we ascend towards the Sacred Heart, which is oneness consciousness and the energy of unconditional love. So that's the Holy Grail, right? So King Arthur mythology, the knights would go out searching for the Holy Grail, but you can't find the Holy Grail outside of yourself. So the whole search of the knights was a search of self-discovery, ultimately unifying your higher mind with your lower mind. So it's a divine way to rule yourself but it's being symbolized right now with RFK Jr.'s presidency, because what are people really turned on by him for? What is he doing? He's speaking truth, right? He's talking about issues that the other candidates aren't willing to talk about, like big pharma, military industrial complex, peace not war, taking on the deep state, and putting, you know, the CIA, how they killed his father and his uncle. And he's really bringing up very dangerous topics for himself, but he's doing it fearlessly, which is what you know, when you're going to ascend your consciousness, one of the things you have to master is fear. You have to overcome fear. So he's moving through his rings of fear and speaking the truth for the purpose of unifying not just our country, but the world.
I totally agree. And what I've learned in my progress in this particular life is that one of the biggest things I came here to do was to face my shadow self, my fears, and overcome them. That's why I became a crew member flying around the world, because I had a fear of heights. That's why I believe we create everything that happens to us. And I created a condition that needed a healing, or I was told it would kill me. So I had to face that. And I think Robert Kennedy Jr., he's so fearless in what he's putting out there. You know, I mean, I listened to him on the Joe Rogan show. He did a 3-hour interview, and he's not afraid to speak his truth and what he's learned from years of research as a lawyer, helping people and finding out what he's found out. But of course, there's an awful lot of people that want to shut him down. And
but he's being supported by the energy of where we are right now, right? So everything's energy. So we're at a time, a cyclical time, where the energy is the greatest. We're moving through the photon belt. We're getting solar flares that we've never seen before. We're seeing the Schumann resonance of the earth vibrating in patterns that we've never seen before and at levels we've never seen before, which is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. So basically energy is we're moving through. So really what's happening with RFK Jr. is he's representing that ascended energy, and that energy is going to help him move forward. And I truly believe they're going to do everything they can to stop him from getting the Democratic nomination. But I do believe that by the grace of God, he will get the Democratic nomination. And by the grace of God, he will be the next president of the United States.
well, and another thing that comes to mind is I think anybody who's on the spiritual path doing the inner work realizes that these houses that people are building on sand, not rock, with lying, ripping people off, confusing people, causing chaos, none of that's going to stand ultimately.
Well, it can't stand, because energetically, when you bring in higher energy, which is what we're seeing now, even if there was a lot of people, which there are, that want to keep humanity in a type of slavery, right, that we've been in for since the beginning of time, when that wave of energy comes through, it neutralizes the lower vibrations. That's simply how energy works. So grace will always neutralize karma. So when you bring in a higher vibrating energy and it meets a low vibrating energy, when they come together, what happens to the low energy? It's neutralized. It's kind of like a white blood cell in your body. A white blood cell vibrates at a higher frequency. When it detects a lower frequency virus or bacteria, the white blood cell will encapsulate it and neutralize it and eliminate it. That's our natural immune system, is designed to do that. So it's all about energy and frequency and vibration. And that's what we're seeing happening now. But leading the charge is RFK Jr. Because he's representing that energy. It's an energy of unity. It's an energy of oneness. It's an energy of peace. And it's an energy of love.
Right. And getting back to this fear-based mentality, which can take over people's minds, and we're seeing so many people living in fear. But when you stand up to evil or something that's threatening you, I mean, I've had to do this a few times in my life. It backs down,
Yeah,
or it falls down, or something happens to it. You are protected if you're doing the inner work and you know that you're really a spiritual being, just living a physical existence, but you're really spiritual. You're not physical.
exactly. And when you're shifting from a head or ego focus to a unity, oneness, heart focus, you're drawing in that higher energy, and that energy will move through you. It's like the Bible says, not I, but my Father through me that does all these things. So when that energy moves through you, you're a conduit for that energy, higher energy. Well, yeah, you don't need to fear, because that energy is going to transmute the lower energies of fear, no matter how they're being expressed.
That's exactly right. And that's freedom. When you understand that you can be sovereign, you can be free, but it's up to you to do that. To, nobody can hand it to you. You have to give it to yourself by recognizing it, having a realization of it, and wanting to find the answer. So many people, I find, maybe they just don't want to find the answer at this stage of their existence, because they'll just accept what other people are telling them. But more and more, I just came back from a week-long trip to Virginia, where I talked to people traveling and visiting, and people are waking up.
People are waking up. I think we're hitting that critical mass where we start to get mass downloads. So what happens when you have that critical mass? You have the 100th monkey effect. So people that haven't studied books or gone to lectures on spirituality, oneness, esoteric teachings, all of a sudden they're downloaded with this understanding of it. So when it's presented to them, they like, yeah, okay, I get it. Whereas maybe a month before, they'd be like a deer in the headlights. They'd be like, what are you talking about? I can't even comprehend it. Now, all of a sudden, when you're getting inner downloads, and you have enough people resonating at a what I call a Christ frequency, or a oneness and unconditional love frequency, there is a 100th monkey effect, and everyone gets downloaded with that information. Whether they accept that information ultimately is up to them, but it's there.
Right. Now, why do you think JFK chose to use Camelot as his vision for America?
Because the mythology of King Arthur is about, King Arthur was an inspired ruler.
Right.
JFK was an inspired ruler. King Arthur wanted to love the people. He unlike other rulers at that time that were tyrannical, King Arthur was loving. King Arthur ruled from the heart. King Arthur actually forgave his wife Guinevere. In truth, he did not condemn her to death. He actually forgave her. So, and his incarnation was set up as a metaphor. Even now, when the King of England gets coronated, they reference King Arthur mythology for that coronation, whether they understand the true mythology or not. The King Arthur mythology is really the basis for present day England royalty. They don't necessarily follow it, but yeah, so it's an inspired way to rule.
Right.
And JFK was inspired because he loved the people and the people loved him.
Yeah, and he knew how to uplift people. When I used to travel to Europe as a flight attendant, I'd get into conversations with Europeans, and many of them even had pictures of JFK in their homes. They really felt like he was the last really fabulous president, because they respected his intellect, his statesmanship, his ability to project.
A continent has the most buildings named after JFK? It's
No,
not America.
Where's
It's
that?
Africa.
Wow. Wow.
So he inspired the world. JFK inspired the world, and that you're going to see that with even with his speech impediment, you're going to see momentum continue to swing behind RFK Jr. because he represents the people, and you know, the dictator class, ruling class of elites right now will fight him. They're not going to give him time on mass media. So he's going through podcasts like the Joe Rogan podcast. So that presidency is going to really be determined by the people, not the powerful elite controlling which candidate gets actual exposure and which one doesn't. Thank God for citizenry podcasts that we have now that enable, it'll be the first time a candidate will literally get elected because he's reaching the people through the people.
Right. And that's so important.
Without the filters of corporations saying this can be said, that can be said, that can't be said. When you go on podcasts, it's unfiltered.
Right. Right. And that's what you need.
It's somewhat unedited. Just like the Joe Rogan, it was 3 hours straight with no editing. It's just listening to him speak.
Right. Yeah. It's just so crazy to me that America the Beautiful has gotten so off track. But, you know, these things have been subtly moving in this direction for so long.
It's been off track for a long time. We just haven't known about it.
Exactly. Now it's becoming so obvious. I don't think you can ignore it anymore. But that's another reason I like these patches, which came to the founder of LifeWaves as a download from higher dimensions to help the Navy SEALs have more energy and strength. And personally, having used them as long as I have now, I notice a big difference in my energy level and everything. In fact, when I was traveling, I'd get into conversations with people and, you know, things would come up like my age and they go, you're kidding, you know, and I don't feel like I'm, you know, my age because these LifeWave apps definitely start making you feel more rejuvenated. And
they certain, you know, the X39 patches and X49 patches, they help to rejuvenate your stem cells, which
absolutely
stem cells that keep you from aging.
Yeah, and I've got a friend who isn't well right now, but she has to get drug tested frequently. And she was afraid to use the patches because she just can't get it into her head that nothing goes into your body with these.
There's no drugs. They're non-transdermal patches. They just use nanocrystal technology that reflects back your body's own infrared light. And that triggers chemical reactions in your body. So there's no drugs going into the body. It's just light technology.
And I was talking to a friend of mine that I got on the patches the other day. We're having a conversation. She said, oh, I'm going to put one on right now. I didn't put mine on yet today. And then like, you know, 10 minutes later, she said to me, you know, I can actually feel it starting to make me feel more energized that quickly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Immediate results, especially for pain. Anyone in pain, you know, it works incredible.
It does. So we're going to put a link below so people can check it out. And you can always go to my website, rebeccatripp.com, and I have a link there. But yeah, anything else you want to say about?
No, we're good. Just have a great weekend.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Take care.
Bye.